And it's not just taking out or eliminating specific agents of the agenda of social evil. That's just part of it. It's taking out the whole fracking system. It's about how to take down the whole system, to attack the systems like advertising is part of the system, like law is part of the system, like the lies of the media, the entertainment industry, the biochemical industries. All of these are parts of the system of social evil. And there is a place in the 17 bands of the party for a particular strike force to act against each of these social evils. So it's a very precisely organized strategic blueprint for action.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it can be done any other way, Henry.
Yeah. Well,
This is
yeah.
not, we need to unite here. We need to unite, not even necessarily to unite like into a mob. I don't mean that at all. The Calico War Party structure is set up in such a way that if you place yourself in one of the bands of the party, we'll look at them in a moment, if you like,
Sure, of course.
then you know what band you're in and you know what your target is. You know what your assignment is, because each of the bands has very particular assignments. What's the logic behind that? Well, I think it's fairly obvious. I mean, we're under such a massive attack that no single person can possibly counterattack everything, right?
Yeah. No, it's too much.
For instance, suppose one of the war parties, and this would be one of the bands, and this would be Band 12. One of the assignments of Band 12 is to take down the network of institutionalized pedophilia and everybody in it. How's that for an assignment?
Yeah.
Now, if you place yourself in that band, and as I'll explain, belonging to the Calico War Party is a volunteer action. It's a self-selection into the party. If you place yourself in that band, you're going to have to bring the totality of yourself to that mission, and you're going to have to concentrate on it. And then you can't go out and fight Monsanto, can you?
Right.
One of the reasons why I really believe, but I don't want to don't take this as an excuse. I'm not making excuses, but I know, Henrik, that one of the reasons why people are not doing anything is because they're paralyzed, because they're getting hit from so many sides at once that you don't know where to turn.
Oh, absolutely. They're overwhelmed. This is a strategy in itself. There's just so many problems. Where do you even begin, right? And
yeah, where do you fight
yeah.
back? There are so many fronts. There are so many things coming at you every day. You
Yeah.
know, so
You
you
have
have to take a
pick your
stand,
battles, right?
and you have to pick your fight.
Yeah.
You have to pick your fight. So there is great strength in the party, even if the members of the party do not mass together as a visible army, and I don't see this being the case. But there's great strength in the party because the Thunderbird formation of the ranks allows each person to place themselves in a band and to take a particular mission. Now, if I place myself in Band 12 and I take the mission of bringing down institutionalized pedophilia, and I'm living in Detroit, Michigan, then I know that even though I may be alone, or I might only have one other Calico warrior with me physically, that Calico warriors all over the world are undertaking the same mission because they're in the same band.
Yep.
That's the power of the party. It is a planetary event, truly planetary event. So you could have 4 members of Band 12 in Johannesburg, South Africa, San Francisco, Tokyo, and Paris. And they might never meet each other physically, but they would know that they are in the same band and that the action of an individual in the band gathers all the force of the band behind it. And people need this. because no single individual is strong enough to go out and take on what's coming at us.
Yeah, this is the time we need, at whatever level you do that on, but we need we need, we've been so individualized, atomized, and again
That's
specifically in the
right.
West at least, we've lost. There is a good upside to a kind of a collectivism, if you want to call it, or cooperation is a better term, of course. But still, we've been, and we need that back into the picture. We need to help each other out, band together, create a brotherhood and a sisterhood.
That's what the warrior class is, and it's a planetary warrior class. I emphasize this has never existed before. As it says in the manifesto, warrior classes have existed in various societies through time. The Arthurian knights are central to the white European tradition of heroism, aren't they?
Yeah.
But then there were the samurai, they were a warrior class. The jaguar and the eagle cults of the Aztecs were a warrior class. The Shaolin knights in China were a warrior class, you see? But they have been local. This is a non-local, planet-wide warrior class. And it is organized according to these ranks and bands in the Thunderbird formation in a way that is unlike anything that has ever existed.
Okay, well, you need to tell us a bit more about that then, so people know what you're talking about there, and of course the symbol that you've chosen as well.
Sure. Well, I'm looking at it right now. You will, of course, provide the link to calicowarparty.org. And when you come to that page, you will see the Thunderbird formation. And beneath the Thunderbird, you will see the golden Thunderbird against black with 17 dots. And beneath the Thunderbird, it says, this site presents the morality and method for eliminating psychopaths and enemies of life from the world. So that's kind of like the mission statement. And then if you click on various things, you get the manifesto. But if you go to the Thunderbird and scroll down, you'll see there is the Thunderbird formation. Now, why a Thunderbird? Okay. Let's just take a step back here for a moment. I don't know if anybody out there hearing this interview has ever heard of Planetary Tantra. But Planetary Tantra is a visionary teaching and a visionary method that came to be defined in the year 2008. Okay? And Planetary Tantra consists of various components. It is a form of shamanism. It is indeed can be called Gaian Tantra, Gaian sorcery. It can be called Gaian shamanism, eco sorcery. It can be called by various names. And Planetary Tantra has at its core one simple and fundamental premise. And that is the shamanism of today and of the future on this planet is unlike any other shamanism because it is a shamanism based on power sharing with the planet. So if you are a practitioner of Planetary Tantra, if you want to go learn about it, there's a lot about it on the internet. If you are a practitioner like me, then you know that as a shaman, you perform your rituals, whatever they may be, by drawing upon the power of the earth itself. Interactive Magic with Gaia is the subtitle of Planetary Tantra. This form of shamanism is a power sharing arrangement. Each human animal shares his or her power with the source, the planetary animal mother, the light, the earth itself. This is the absolute hallmark of Planetary Tantra. Well, now you can transfer that same principle to the Calico War Party. Remember, that this is a party of warrior shamans. So the warriors in the party also draw their power from the earth. For instance, specific example, the Calico lethal strike. Now, this is an actual magic ritual intended to kill someone at a distance. No shaman on this planet can perform that strike correctly or effectively if they do not combine their power with the power of the earth. This is the technique of Planetary Tantra, and it's also the technique of the war party. So, a thunderbird is the symbol of the warrior power of the earth itself. It is the symbol of our mother, it is the symbol of the Aeon Sophia. And she brings us her rage and her power to kill. And believe me, do you think the earth has power to kill?
Oh, yeah.
Well, think about it.
Of course it does. Yeah.
Just think about it a little bit. She brings to our use an application, the supernatural power of her own body. And you can picture that power as a thunderbird, a raptor, a dangerous, very dangerous looking bird, if you look at the icon of the Calico War Party. Now, why a thunderbird again? Well, thunder is a theme in Planetary Tantra. As a matter of fact, the word thunder in English occurs in the Nag Hammadi library. Did you know that? In the title of one of the most magnificent and best preserved pieces of the Gnostic material.
Right.
Thunder, perfect mind.
Right.
Yeah. Thunder in Sanskrit is Vajra, which also means lightning, which also means crystal. So this theme of thunder, perfect mind, Vajra mind, diamond mind, thunderbolt pervades Planetary Tantra. And those who have been in the practice now over the last, 6 years or so, would be able to testify to what I'm saying. I'm sure they would happily do so. The power of thunder, the connection with the violent electrical force of the earth is a connection to the planetary animal mother.
Like the electric activity of our synapses firing, like that clear, a kind of a sharp, clear, a thought can be like that, right? It's right there.
Crystal clear firing of your synapses when the circuits of your brain have been cleansed of all the garbage and the programming. And when you are crystal clear as a human being, you are crystal clear that a human being is an animal. And it's an animal that is designed to kill. I've said this before on Red Ice, didn't I, Henrik?
Yeah.
Yeah. I said this quite a while ago, that part of what makes us divine and important to the planetary animal mother is that she has designed us to kill. But we just have to know how to use that power to kill in the correct way, morally, playfully, to kill in a beautiful way, to kill with beauty. Think of beauty as a weapon. This is what you have to learn to be in the party. This is what you have to learn to grow up and be a responsible human animal and stand up to the enemies of life.
There's nothing wrong with that design, with that plan. It's something which is inherent in us. And I know people will debate that, but I think we have to look at it differently. I think there's never been a time when there has not been a warrior class, I think, as there is now. Sure, people talk about other, ages or what have you, but in the conception we find ourselves in as of right now, the idea that you need to be in a position where you where you defend the children in your village, your women, etc. That's been part of human life and human nature for many hundreds of thousands of years.
Of course it has. And you are absolutely right. And every single society that has been connected to the earth and that has revered nature and retained respect for the harmony in nature, every single community, every single culture that has learned what it is to be human by looking at the non-human world has realized that we are designed in this way. And they have never, ever rejected violence in the way that it is rejected today, which is false and phony rejection of violence that only keeps human beings in a state of impotence.
Yeah, and it
You
it,
see?
it also keeps us in a position where, by not applying this in well-directed areas and strikes to be able to keep clean of those who are who cannot stick to peaceful interactions and who are not subversive, deconstructive in the manner that we see today in the world. By not applying that properly, we are causing far much more harm in the long term than what it would be to maybe in the short term deal with this problem and take care of business. So it's like we lack that understanding of realize that due to those choices, because it might be temporarily more comfortable, we're in that comfort zone where we refuse to look at these kinds of conflicts and type of situations. When we look away, it's going to be much more, the suffering is going to be much worse in the long run. That's what I believe anyway.
Oh, you are so right. You are so right. And I don't know about the rest of you out there, but the suffering is bad enough for me right now. I don't need it to go another day. And I have to tell you that I say that from the position of someone who isn't affected in the least by it,
Right. Yeah.
externally speaking. You know, I'm not physically in danger. I'm not starving. I don't have a lack of water to drink. I don't live beside, uh, a toxic landfill. And yet I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand knowing that it exists on the planet that I live on. I can't stand it anymore. I have to strike back.
And you
And
also know, right, John? You know and you understand that it's not about sitting around and waiting until this is something that reaches your doorstep, and at that point it will be too late.
absolutely
We're
not.
the human have a
Absolutely
we
not.
can
I'm going to wait.
project.
I'm going
No,
to go out and meet it in whatever way I can,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And getting back to what you just said, it's so helpful to remember what you just said, that this really, the warrior class has already existed always in sane societies, sane communities, before civilization became the monstrosity it is today. That is absolutely true. And I would point out to you also that the leading line of the Calico War Party, if I read it again, it says, uh, eliminating social evil. And it says, this site presents the morality and method for eliminating psychopaths, enemies of life from the world. So you might well wonder, well, wait a minute, what is the morality behind what John's proposing here? Because, many people would say, well, this is, taking life or even threatening to take life or harming people and all this kind of stuff that
right.
he seems to be promoting here. Uh, that's not moral. Well, depends on where you get your morals from, my friends. I can't go into a long discourse here on Gaian ethics, but I can give you a 3-minute introduction. How about that?
Well, and let me just interject that too. Just think about this while we talk here about this. But how is it not moral to take that responsibility of ensuring to dealing with that evil we see in the world, that violence that we see expressed against so many human beings today, and the destruction of everything? Again, it's been said before, but all it takes for evil to persevere in the world is for good men to do nothing, and that's what we're talking about here.
You nailed it. It's all turned inside out. We've been taught that what is immoral for good and decent people who do not want to harm others, we've been taught that what is immoral for us is actually the morality that we need to be good and decent people. It's been turned completely inside out.
Yeah,
That is the mind control. You see?
that's
And
right.
can you see what advantage that gives to those who do harm and who wish to do harm and who do nothing but harm and who make a lifestyle and a business out of it? Can you see what it leaves the way for them,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah. They're running the world today. That's what's happened.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, I mean, how many times have you and I and all the people who listen to Red Ice asked themselves, how is it possible that human society has reached the stage where it is today? It's no longer even necessary to hide the fact that criminals and psychopaths are in the uh, positions of authority and the positions of management in society all around the world.
Yeah,
You know, you can't even, it's so obvious, it screams at you every day. And you have to ask, how is it possible? It's possible because we have abdicated the morality that is required to make sure that that doesn't happen.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
To see yourself as a real human being capable of taking responsibility for eliminating evil. Let me make this syntax clear. You're taking responsibility for something that you didn't do. But you are taking responsibility for seeing that it stops being done. Okay?
yeah,
Is that clear?
yeah.
That's the cutting edge of this morality. Well, when you see yourself as a human being who really can do that, then you see yourself as an animal among other animals. Because let me tell you, it's so obvious if you look at the difference between human animals and other animals. There is the prey predator relationship all through the animal world, right?
Yeah,
But animals that prey on other animals, such as eagles, raptors, falcons, owls, have a very limited range of prey, don't they?
sure. Yeah,
An owl, for instance, is a predator in nature. A cheetah is a predator in nature. And these predators have an extremely limited range of prey. Now look at the human animal. Does it have a limited range of prey? Fuck no. The human animal preys on every other species on this planet, and it preys on itself.
yeah,
Now, if you can't see that and admit that, you are not in the game. But if you can see that, there is something tremendously liberating coming your way. That is the simple realization that that's the way we are, so let's make the best of it.
mm,
If we're divinely designed to excel in violence, like I said on a previous Red Ice interview, then let's make sure we know how to handle that violence. And whether it be physical violence, it doesn't always have to be, but it can. It can be what I call violent intent. Part of the magic used by the warriors in the party is the magic based on intention, violent intent. You can formulate a violent intent and you can ritualize it and then direct it toward the target. So some activities in the party are of that kind. Other activities of the party would, for instance, be similar to what you would call guerrilla warfare or street warfare.
right. Yeah,
For instance, there is a band in the party that is band number 13, and one of their missions, because there are sometimes more than one mission to each band, but one of their missions is to attack advertising. Now, there are many ways you can attack advertising, and it's been done in the street, if you know what I mean.
sure.
So, that's right. Now, take another example. Uh, Surveillance cameras. Suppose that one band, I won't say which one it is because I don't really know, because I don't have all these assignments and everything written out in a cut and dried fashion, by the way. I have to make this point really clear.
Sure. Yeah.
I have the general blueprint, but let's say that one of the bands determines that their members are dedicated to attacking closed circuit surveillance television cameras.
Yeah.
You see, that's a form of violence against the system. And I realize that I'm taking a risk saying this because the authorities can look at me and say, well, this character, John Lash, could be causing us some trouble here because he's encouraging people, to go and vandalize CC surveillance cameras. Let me ask you, do you think they need encouragement?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Excuse me, you know?
Yeah.
No, they don't need encouragement. They're boiling over to do it.
Yeah.
They're boiling over to do it. And all they need is someone to give them permission. And I hereby give it. Okay?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
my pleasure to do so.
I'm so surprised we haven't seen, and I do see it now and then too, though, by the way, but just, come on, people, for Christ's sake, campaigns of disruption against these modalities that are destroying your way of life. Let's see some of it, come on.
Campaigns of destruction in every direction.
Yeah.
You see people going out and tearing up GMO crops. Okay?
Mm.
That's Calico War Party violence. That's violence. Directed in defense of life and directed against the enemies of life. Now, taking out the CEO of Monsanto, that would be a nice day, you see.
Yeah.
These are the options, and these things can be done. And what am I doing? Am I coming up with some really bizarre idea that nobody ever thought of? And here's John Lash, and he's finally done it now. Oh boy, he's come out and he's like endorsing and promoting, violence. Although I haven't named any names, have I? And am I really doing that? I'll tell you what I think I'm doing. I think I'm saying what's on everybody's mind already.
Yeah.
Henrik, is a funny thing about the human animal. We are deeply social creatures and we are deeply dependent upon each other. It's a beautiful thing when that dependency goes to mutual aid, it goes to celebration, it goes to love, to shared pleasure. It can go in so many directions. And as a result of this deeply social nature of the human animal, it's a funny thing about people, but sometimes they need another person to give them permission to do what they already want to do.
Yeah. Like okay, there's not just me then. They need that kind of, well, I don't know if it's based on security, what it is, but yeah, you're right. You need that kind of realization that it's more, and that's why it's so important even to talk about that, because in getting that out there, because people think, well, am I the only one that's thinking this, and everyone's just sitting around and waiting for someone else to do something,
That's right. And that becomes a limbo, and that becomes a black hole, and that becomes another point of impotence and despair, which is greatly to the advantage of the enemies of life.
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about what I'm saying to you now. You can bet on it. If those of you who are really hearing what I'm saying must know that, I wanted to come out and say what I'm saying now in a lucid and sober manner and in a balanced and sane way. And I have to tell you that I'm not afraid to say this, and I'm not afraid to be viewed as someone who is endorsing violence, because all I'm doing is talking to what is already there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Violence is simmering over. It's like a pressure cooker that's about to explode.
Well, exactly. Well, you know what? I was thinking about that when you talked earlier, and I think it's about also managing or getting to a position where you actually can control that, turn that into an art, mastering that. Otherwise, if not, I think we get the then we get those kinds of explosive events of, I mean, there are examples we could take here, Breivik in Norway or whatever, misdirected anger,
Right,
frustration, someone who
right.
blows something up where a lot of people are, hurt, and that have nothing to do with the problems that, he was talking about specifically, and things like that, right? So it's very, it's a dangerous thing, and I think that we see people snap and they break of sorts
Of course
internally
they do.
because it's not mastered and controlled.
Of course. One of the words that I use this word violence, and it has to be used very carefully and very skillfully. What does John Lash mean by violence? John Lash is endorsing violence. What is this? Perhaps it would be more acceptable, although I don't give a damn if it's acceptable or not, but perhaps it would be more acceptable to the minds of some people to use the word rage. You know,
Yeah.
there is a boiling rage in the human species against what has been done by the enemies of life on this planet. But the problem is, and the enemies of life understand this very, very well, is that the rage, if it boils over mindlessly and without direction, will harm those that it's not supposed to harm,
Yeah.
you see?
Yeah.
And so the whole challenge of the party, one of the great challenges faced by the party, is what I call to achieve elucidated anger, and to aim your rage and aim your violent intent steadily and correctly toward the right targets. Let's not be naive here, folks. The psychopaths, for instance, in the United States, I'll just speak of my own country, which is a land that I deeply love. I consider myself to be a true American. But since the United Soviet States of America has come into existence, uh, you hear all this news about Homeland Security acquiring all this hollow point ammunition and everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's quite clear that the authorities are manipulating the populace of the United States of America toward an armed confrontation, right?
Yeah.
It's clear. There is bound to be an armed confrontation. But the authorities want that. Why do they want it? Because in the revolutions that they have been able to foment so far, going back to the French Revolution as the first outstanding historical example in recent times, in all those revolutions, they have been able to hijack the violence, and they have been able to manage the violence. Look at what happened in the Russian Revolution.
Yeah.
It started out in 1905, the February Revolution, as a genuine armed uprising of the people, right?
Yeah.
And 12 years later, by 1917, with the October Revolution, it was completely hijacked by the Jewish Bolsheviks.
Yeah.
You see?
That's right.
Take a lesson from history. They don't mind violent upheavals among the people as long as they can manage them. The thing that the authorities fear the most on this planet is violence and rage coming from people who are sober and steady warriors who know how to aim it and know how to handle it. And it's time to learn those skills. And those Kalikas in the party learn those skills and teach them to each other.
Yeah. I think that's wise, because we're so disattached, to these kinds of things, and we, grown men sit at home and they play, Call of Duty and watch violent movies, but they've never, punched someone or been punched in the face. It's like this disattached weirdness to these kinds of issues, which makes the whole situation so much more, disturbing and perverse. I can't really find any other words for it. And we're so disattached in the same way that we a lot of us eat meat, but we've never even killed an animal or seen one killed that we are to eat. That's what's
That's
wrong
right.
about it.
The archons have a role in this as well. there is a supernatural element behind the attack upon humanity and the earth. I've talked about it a great deal, as you know, probably talked about it more than anybody else. And who knows, maybe even better than anybody else. But I addressed that question again in the manifesto under this section of the supernatural, where the manifesto says that there is a supernatural and extra-human factor at play in the worldwide battle. And this is the alien force that intrudes upon the human mind, and it takes advantage of the evil done by humans to each other and makes that evil even worse. A really good example of the working of the archonic factor in this war is the massive, massive participation in these games. World of War, Warcraft, I don't even know the names of these games.
Yeah.
There are millions of people playing these games, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which are archontic games. That is to say, they're games of simulation. Remember that the Gnostics warned us that the archons have a tool among their various tools. They have one tool at which they are supremely skillful, and that is HAL, which means virtual reality or simulation. So, due to the archonic influence, which is like a spell cast over the human mind, millions and millions of men, and presumably women as well, spend untold hours in their lives playing these war games. This is insane. I have to say to those people, you are deplorable fools, and I fucking hate you. I hate you for playing those games. And you should be ashamed of yourself and ashamed to show your face in public if you play those games. I invite you to come into the Calico War Party and play some real games.
Yeah.
Some real magic.
Yeah.
But you'll have to risk your life to do that. Whereas when you're playing World of Warcraft, sitting on your ass in the sofa in your cell
Yeah.
and eating potato chips, you're not risking anything, are you?
No.
So this is the state it's got to. It can't, you wonder if it can't get any worse, don't you? Well, I don't. I stopped wondering, Henrik, whether it's going to get any worse or not. It's bad enough for me. It's
Yeah.
time to get this party started.
Yeah. So you said you didn't have all the bands, as you call them, kind of outlined or whatnot, but is there any more there that you want to just kind of
Sure.
tell for people? Yeah.
If you go to the calicowarparty.org page, which you will link, and across the top of the menu, you have manifesto. Be sure to read that. Protocols. That's my neologism for protocols. Protocols is what you need to know to be cool in the party, because we all want to be cool with each other. There are certain rules, okay? They're not authoritarian rules. They're just guidelines for agreements. Those are the protocols. Read those. Then you come to Thunderbird. Now you click on Thunderbird, and it shows the Thunderbird formation. Going back to the Planetary Tantra for a moment, there is a central icon of Planetary Tantra. It's a mandala of great power. It represents the emergence of the turbulent force of the planetary animal mother into a standing field. This is called the Shakti cluster. Shakti cluster has been in existence on this planet since August of 2008. And now, if you look at the Shakti cluster, and then you turn your eyes and look at the Thunderbird formation, you will see that the Thunderbird formation is the Shakti cluster, but in a different configuration of points. Now, these points on the Thunderbird formation are arranged in 5 ranks. So the Calico War Party consists of 5 ranks and 17 bands. And the names of the powerful infernal goddess warrior forces that drive those bands are given in the left-hand column. Now, some of those names may be alien or off-putting to you at first because mostly they're Sanskrit names, but that doesn't matter. They're just names. They're just labels, and they are subject to change to more user-friendly labels as this party develops. But what you see is a blueprint for the strategic formations of the war party. Now, there are two ways you might consider this formation of dots on the Thunderbird. First of all, consider the old arts of war, say during Roman times. Back in those times, men on the battlefield would join in a particular formation, like a wedge or a large rectangle, right?
Mm.
Which is called a phalanx, right? They would join their shields together and they would make a formation so that they had more force than one single warrior standing alone, right?
Yeah.
So when you see these points on the Kalika of the Kalika bands on the Thunderbird, that is the same concept. It's a strategic formation of bands to give maximum force to each band and to the entirety. The second way you can look at the points on the Thunderbird formation is like the power points on the human body, like acupressure points, or the chakras, if you want to use that quaint old term. So the Thunderbird formation, which is a metamorphosis of the Shakti cluster, has 17 points, 17 bands arranged in 5 ranks. Now, as I explained, there's no hierarchy in this party. There's really not even any leader of this party. I just happen to be the one who's announcing the party. So in a certain sense, I appear to be the leader, nominally speaking, or temporarily, because I am the one who gives it definition. But the organization of the party in the ranks is functional. It is not hierarchical. So there's no command and control structure in the Calico War Party. Not at all. No. Each of the ranks has a different function regarding the total integrity and strength of the party. And I explain that in brief language in the text that goes with the Thunderbird formation. Finally, the last thing I might say before we sum up here, Henrik, is that there is right now, with the announcement of the party, not a full, there is no full description of what are the assignments of all these 17 bands. Okay? I have sketched out some of the assignments. For instance, like I said, band 12 under Tantra Mother, that would be Vajra Yogini in Tibetan terms, has the mission of destroying institutionalized pedophile networks and all of their members. That mission is specific to that one band, you see?
Yeah.
But there may be other missions that that band undertakes as well, which would be revealed in the course of time. Now, the band that I'm in, which is the band 1 of Mahakali, has the assignment to bring down all religions, not just Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, but also Buddhism. And I'm going for that big time in January. So stay tuned, folks. And to destroy, finally, all the structures of patriarchal male mind dominance. And this is an absolutely frontal attack on patriarchy. That's band 1. Now there's a
do you want to
FAQ.
Let me ask you about that. Do you want to clarify that a bit for people who think, oh, wait a minute, but that's the feminist stuff, right? And all that thing that comes along with that. That's another level of the propaganda, right? So do you want to explain that to people who might wonder about that?
Yeah, lately there's this MGTOW thing, men going their own way, and there's the men's right movement and everything. And it's all asinine and juvenile, in my opinion. And it's all trivial and it's like frivolous, really. And the people who are speaking for it's just the downfall of feminism is creating a lot of dust and debris. And that's what these movements are. But one of the points in these movements is that the men's rights movement is saying, oh, well, there is no real patriarchy. It's just this boogeyman that feminists created. And the word patriarchy has now become put in question because feminists use it so loosely and they apply it so broadly. And that's all bullshit and ignorance and confusion. Patriarchy is very, very real and has been very real for millennia. And so don't get confused by the confusion of people who are getting caught in the collapse of feminism.
Right.
And feminism is going down. And I think it's a really good thing. I expect that feminism will be in total ruins by 6 months from now. In fact, attacking feminism belongs to one of the assignments of one of the bands of the party. You see what I mean? But attacking it in the correct way. But as feminism goes down, it takes down a lot of women with it, and also takes down a lot of men. And so
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
that these men and women are getting anywhere near the real solution for our species, which is the healing of the gender rift, something that I've talked about a lot, and particularly in the recent newsletters on Gaiaspora.org, you can see what I have to say about that subject.
Yeah, because I
Okay?
mean, I always saw that as, feminism as part of the plot, and of course, making it worse also for women due to the fact that men are ostracized. The rift gets worse. Case in point, just look at a country like Sweden, where we have more or less state feminism implemented. There's nowhere they're so confused as Sweden when it comes to the gender roles and the eradication of them. Child abuse, really, when they're starting to impose these on our young children, Swedish children. It's horrible to see this.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's another aspect of the system. So Calico warriors would not only attack the false rhetoric of feminism, they would attack and expose the false rhetoric of anti-feminism as well, because a lot of the anti-feminism is really screwed up. These men in the MGTOW movement going their own way and leaving women behind. Well, excuse me, guys,
Yeah, that's horrible.
but I don't know exactly what you've got in mind there. What are you going to do? Service each other and all turn into gay guys? Is that what you're going to do? Or are
Yeah,
you all going to become celibate?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's
I
an
agree.
adolescent reaction against the very justifiable outrage at what feminism has done to men, but it's still an adolescent reaction that's not going to lead
No, I
anywhere.
mean the answer is not to turn the back on women who's turned their back on men. It's quite the opposite. I think they on some level, be it that unconsciously, realize that that situation needs to heal, and they need real men to come back into the picture and acting like men, as women acting as women, should
That's
do
right,
as
and
well.
acting together.
Yeah,
Acting together and supporting each other in our gender differences.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
the gender wars are in their terminal stage, and I think that when the dust and the debris clears, uh, there is a good chance to return to really healthy and balanced gender relations between men and women. I talk about gender relations in the protocols of the party. They're very important because sexual energy is one of the fuels of the party. It's one of the warriors' uh, assets, one of the warriors' uh, most important tools is sexual energy. So sexual energy must be handled carefully and skillfully within the party, and that's an important point not to overlook. But finally, Henrik, just to give, to round off my overview here,
Sure.
if you
Yeah.
read through under the Thunderbird formation, you will see that every one of the bands in the 5 ranks has been described briefly, you know? And for instance, rank 4, Budevi, is assigned to fight against the enemies of the environment and to promote ecology, aesthetics, and material magic using the 4 elements and the 4 seasons. Also, this band, the Budevi band, number 4, have the special mission of providing safe environments where warriors can gather and confer and be healed. So you see there, it's very, very specific. And it's so specific that it would be impossible at the outset to lay it all out in a cut and dried fashion. Do you understand? So I haven't done that. What I presented is a working blueprint for the structure of the party. And that blueprint becomes a force of flesh and blood as people find their places in these ranks. Now, one last thing I want to mention before we kind of wind up is that there is a FAQ page. And naturally, I expect people to be writing in to the Calico War Party and saying, well, how do I know what band I'm in and so forth. And this is an ongoing and developing dialogue that now begins. It's not something that I don't sit here at some pinnacle of authority over the party and assign people to different bands. Everyone assigns themselves,
Right. Yeah.
and you will be directed to your assignment by the totality of yourself and by the direction of your deepest and purest rage.
Very good. So it's just emphasize that point again, as you mentioned, it's kind of it's decentralized. So when someone is thinking, well, the warriors are out there ready to go, they're on standby, they want to turn in this direction that you've been talking about, they say, well, where do I turn? Well, it's right there in terms of how to get involved, and it's not something that's going to be delegated or in that capacity. So it's something that could function even if one person falls off or 50 people falls off. It doesn't matter. It's a voluntary engagement that you go into, and in that capacity, it could be however many people you want, right, and etc. There can be a tremendous amount of people working on these issues that you've described.
That's right. It's a free-flowing open system. I ask those of you who are attracted to what we've been talking about here for a couple of hours now, I ask those of you who are compelled and feel in your heart a real warrior's spirit to just contemplate the Thunderbird formation. Just look at it, print it out, and look at it, and then look at the different spots, the different bands, and then go and check out which of those bands are. For instance, band 10 under Kamala is assigned to Kala Tantra, the erotic arts, to sex education, to porn education. And their targets include the degenerate policies of sex education and gender equality. You see? So if someone were to take the particular mission of saying, someone in Sweden, I am going to take down the system that is forcing this ridiculous gender equality language upon our children and screwing up their ideas of their gender from the time that they're 3 years old. I'm going to take down that system, and I'm going to go after the people who are running that system. Then they would place themselves in band 10, you see?
Yep.
Self-selection. And I want to say, finally, as my last comment on the Thunderbird formation, you cannot imagine how powerful this is. You don't have enough imagination to see how powerful this is. You can see how powerful it is by getting into it and participating. And then that power will be yours. And when it's yours, you will know what it is. But I assure everyone who is listening to my words that the power of the rage of the planetary animal mother herself informs every band of this party. And when you fight as a Calico warrior, you fight with her power behind you, in you, around you, and also with her protection.
All right, John, very good. Again, here then, calicowarparty.org, that's the website. And we're going to have that up on our websites, of course. Click through there if you feel attracted to this, is something you want to read more about. Go over there and check it out and read more and see if you want to get involved in this. And as John explained as well, I guess it's more there's something to the more hands-on approach as well, if that's what something that you're attracted to in terms of what you can do. I think it's an idea that whose time has come, as they say, and the idea that we need to get involved. I mean, I welcome any kind of involvement at this stage, any kind of level, and concerted efforts of trying to do something about the situation we find ourselves in. And it's all good and well to talk about it. We need to do that. We need to continue to spread the word about these things, wake people up. But ultimately, if there's no action consequently due to it doesn't matter. We can sit around and talk about these problems all day long and nothing's going to happen. And our detractors are enemies of life, as you said, John. They're working day and night on the issue of dealing with us as they see fit. And it's time that we get involved and get into that game at whatever level we choose to do that. So well done, John. Thanks.
Well, thank you. It's been great that our friendship over these years has brought me to this point, and where I have the opportunity to announce the party on Red Ice. So it's a privilege, and I'm feeling that the spirit of the warrior class is ready to blossom. So let's see it blossom.
Very good, very good. Thanks, John. Again, I also want to mention metahistory.org, the other website. Check out Not in His Image as well. Excellent book, of course, by John Lash. We'll have that up as well. Well, we'll talk again more soon here, John. We definitely need to touch base with you again. But great, and thank you so much for coming on. And I urge people to listen to our first interview in this, mini-series, I guess we could call it, that we did with John Lash as well. To get another level of the background of what we've been talking about here in case you missed that particular program. Lots of good stuff in the archives for you with John Lash. So thank you again, John. We'll talk more again soon.
Yes. Thank you, Henrik. Goodbye for now.
Well, that concludes our radio show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your interest, passion, and dedication to these subjects, and for having, not only an interest, but also, if you're so inclined, dedicated to act and respond to the troubling reality that we face when it comes to how we are being targeted for extinction. There are, of course, several ways to go about this, and we do encourage all of it, a multiple front warfare tactic in order for us to regain control of our nations and ultimately our world. Please consider signing up for a membership with us. We have tons of shows for you in our archives. The majority of what we do is for free, but please have a look at redicemembers.com and see what we have for you. Thank you so much for your support and for helping us not only to continue, but to expand in our coverage. Please join us again in a few days when we're back with more. For now, we say have a good day or evening.